Did you know Hollywood once sank more ships than the Japanese Navy? That's right. Movie studios destroyed more actual naval vessels for war films than were lost at the Battle of Midway. But which WWII naval films truly stand the test of time? From claustrophobic submarine thrillers to epic aircraft carrier battles, these movies defined how we see naval warfare on screen. Number 15. Greyhound, 2020. Tom Hanks wrote and starred in this nail-biting convoy thriller that ditches Hollywood nonsense for pure naval combat. Based on C.S. Forester's novel, The Good Shepherd, Greyhound follows Commander Ernest Krauss, leading his first Atlantic convoy mission while being stalked by a wolf pack of German U-boats. What makes this film different? It's brutally efficient. A lean 90 minutes with zero romance subplots, flashbacks, or unnecessary filler. The production struggled for years to get made, eventually landing at Apple TV Plus during the pandemic. Hanks was reportedly devastated when it couldn't get a proper theatrical release. The film's realism comes from obsessive attention to detail, including accurate naval communications, tactics, and equipment. The crew even constructed a full-scale destroyer bridge mounted on a gimbal system to simulate rough seas. Critics were split on the film's relentless pace, with some calling it exhausting, while naval historians praised its technical accuracy. One Navy veteran told the Military Times, "This is the first movie that actually shows how terrifying convoy duty really was." The film cost $50 million, but reportedly generated massive subscriber numbers for Apple TV Plus. Hanks later admitted the grueling production left him with destroyer captain PTSD, claiming he still occasionally wakes up shouting naval coordinates in the middle of the night. Unlike the bloated naval epics that followed, Greyhound delivers pure tactical combat that feels like you're actually on that destroyer bridge, making split-second decisions that determine whether hundreds of men live or die. Number 14. The Cruel Sea, 1953. This British naval drama ripped the romantic veneer off convoy duty and showed it for what it truly was, a brutal war of attrition. Jack Hawkins stars as Lieutenant Commander Erickson, a merchant Navy officer conscripted to command the corvette HMS Compass Rose, protecting vital supply convoys. What separates this film from typical war propaganda? It shows the psychological toll of having to deliberately run over shipwrecked sailors to hunt a U-boat. Director Charles Friend used actual Royal Navy vessels and shot in genuine Atlantic storm conditions, with actors violently seasick throughout filming. The production became notorious when a real storm nearly sank one of their ships during shooting, forcing the crew to abandon their equipment and engage in genuine emergency procedures while cameras rolled. Critics initially slammed the film's bleak portrayal of naval warfare as dangerously demoralizing, but it became a massive box office hit in Britain. The Admiralty privately acknowledged its accuracy, while publicly maintaining a more heroic narrative. The most powerful scene shows Hawkins ordering his ship to depth charge an area filled with British survivors, knowing they'll die, but potentially saving hundreds more lives. His haunted delivery of "the war against ships is bad enough, the war against men is worse" became one of British cinema's most quoted lines. Maritime historian Nicholas Montserrat called it the only film that captures the true heartbreak of the Battle of the Atlantic. High praise, considering he wrote the novel it was based on. Number 13. In Which We Serve, 1942, Noel Coward. Yes, that Noel Coward, the playwright and composer, directed, wrote, scored, produced, and starred in this propagandistic yet surprisingly brutal wartime naval drama. Made during the actual war with full Admiralty cooperation, it follows the crew of HMS Tora before and after their ship gets sunk by German bombers. What makes this film remarkable? Churchill personally authorized its production as a morale booster, despite its unflinching depiction of devastating naval casualties. Coward based the story on Lord Louis Mountbatten's destroyer, HMS Kelly, which was sunk during the Battle of Crete. Mountbatten himself loaned Coward his personal diaries to ensure accuracy. The Admiralty supplied actual naval personnel as extras and technical advisors, many of whom had survived real sinkings. During filming, several of these sailors received news that friends had died in action, creating a production environment of genuine grief. Critics initially dismissed it as theater at sea, but British audiences queued for hours during air raids to see it. The film's most controversial scene showed sailors desperately trying to rescue burning crewmates trapped below decks. Footage so graphic, the American censors cut it entirely. When King George VI saw the film, he reportedly wept openly and immediately awarded Coward an honorary naval commission. Film historian Mark Kermode notes, "This wasn't just entertainment. It was psychological warfare aimed at both boosting British resolve and shocking America into joining the fight." The film's stark portrayal of naval disaster represented a radical departure from previous war films, establishing a template for honest combat cinema that would influence filmmakers for decades. Number 12. PT-109, 1963. The only WWII movie ever made about a sitting U.S. president, this action drama chronicles John F. Kennedy's harrowing experience commanding a PT boat in the Pacific. Cliff Robertson, handpicked by JFK himself, stars as the future president, whose boat gets sliced in half by a Japanese destroyer, forcing him to lead survivors through enemy waters. What makes this film unique? Kennedy personally approved the script while in office, then watched it in the White House theater, just months before his assassination. The production faced unprecedented scrutiny, with Kennedy's political opponents accusing him of self-promotion and the Navy worrying about portraying the loss of a vessel as heroic. Warner Brothers spent a fortune building functional PT boat replicas in Florida, only to have them repeatedly damaged by storms. Robertson trained extensively with actual PT boat veterans and even met with Kennedy several times to discuss his mannerisms. Critics were mixed, with many noting the awkwardness of portraying a sitting president as an action hero. The New York Times called it patriotic hagiography, while Time magazine praised its refreshing honesty about naval disaster. Kennedy's only public comment was typically self-deprecating. "It's a good film, but I don't think they should have shown the part where I rammed that destroyer." The most powerful scene recreates Kennedy towing an injured sailor through miles of enemy waters, with a life jacket strap clenched between his teeth, a feat many historians initially doubted until multiple witnesses confirmed it. After Kennedy's assassination, the film gained a haunting quality, with Robertson later saying, "Every time I watch it, I can't help thinking how many more naval battles he had ahead of him." Number 11. Sink the Bismarck, 1960. This taut black-and-white British thriller chronicles the desperate hunt for Nazi Germany's most powerful battleship, the seemingly unstoppable Bismarck. Kenneth More stars as Captain Jonathan Shepard, tasked with coordinating the massive naval operation from the Admiralty War Room. What separates this film from typical naval dramas? It combines claustrophobic war room tension with spectacular naval battles filmed using the Royal Navy's actual ships. Director Lewis Gilbert convinced the Admiralty to deploy 2 operational aircraft carriers, 6 cruisers, and numerous destroyers as filming platforms and background vessels, the largest concentration of British naval power ever assembled for a movie. The production's realism extended to casting several officers who participated in the actual hunt for the Bismarck, including one who still carried shrapnel wounds from the battle. Critics praised the film's documentary-like approach, though some American reviewers complained about the lack of Hollywood gloss. The film became a massive hit in Britain, where memories of the Bismarck's reign of terror remained fresh. Naval historian Ludovic Kennedy, who served on the HMS Tartar during the actual pursuit, called it remarkably accurate in spirit, if not in every tactical detail. The film's most controversial aspect was its portrayal of German Admiral Lütjens as an ardent Nazi, when in reality He was known to be unenthusiastic about the regime. When the movie aired in Germany years later, this characterization sparked protests from veterans. Despite these liberties, the film's meticulous recreation of naval warfare tactics, using the Royal Navy's own combat manuals, made it required viewing at military academies. Worldwide, one instructor at Annapolis supposedly told students, "Watch this film, and you'll understand naval strategy better than half your textbooks." Number 10. They Were Expendable, 1945. John Ford and John Wayne teamed up for this gritty naval drama about PT boat squadrons, fighting a desperate delaying action during the fall of the Philippines. Released while the war was still raging, it follows Lieutenant Brickley and Lieutenant Ryan as their undermanned, under-equipped boats battle against overwhelming Japanese forces. What makes this film remarkable? Director Ford served in the Navy's photographic unit during the actual battles and brought his combat experience directly to the screen. The production received unprecedented military cooperation, with the Navy providing actual PT boats and crews fresh from combat duty. Montgomery himself had commanded a PT boat during the D-Day invasion just months earlier, bringing chilling authenticity to his performance. During filming in Florida, the cast and crew received news of real naval casualties daily, creating an atmosphere of grim determination on set. Critics initially found the film too harsh for wartime audiences expecting triumph, but military personnel praised its honesty. Admiral William Halsey famously said, "This isn't Hollywood's version of war. This is the real thing with the blood wiped off." The film's box office suffered from its release just after Japan's surrender, when audiences craved celebration rather than reminders of America's darkest military hours. The film's most haunting scene comes when Wayne's character realizes their sacrificial mission isn't about winning, but buying time. We're expendable. We're the old Navy fighting spirit. Ford later revealed that several extras in the evacuation scenes were actual Bataan survivors, still recovering from captivity, lending unbearable poignancy to their brief appearances. Modern critics now rank it among the most honest war films ever made, precisely because it was created before anyone knew who would ultimately win. Number 9. U-571, 2000. This submarine heist thriller sparked international outrage by rewriting history, claiming Americans captured the first German Enigma machine when it was actually British sailors who performed the feat. Matthew McConaughey stars as Lieutenant Tyler, reluctantly taking command of a mission to board a disabled German U-boat and steal its encryption device before the Germans can recover it. What makes this film infamous? The British Parliament formally condemned it, with Prime Minister Tony Blair calling it an affront to the sacrifice of British sailors. Despite historical inaccuracies, director Jonathan Mostow created perhaps the most technically accurate submarine environment ever filmed. The production built full-scale submarine interiors mounted on hydraulic gimbals that could rotate 45 degrees in any direction, with actors performing while being violently tossed about. The crew worked in claustrophobic conditions with real water flooding the sets during battle sequences. Critics were split between praising the film's white-knuckle tension and condemning its historical revisionism. Veteran U-boat commander Herbert Werner called the battle sequences terrifyingly authentic, while noting the story itself is complete fiction. The controversy didn't hurt the box office. The film grossed $127 million worldwide, despite a congressional inquiry into its distortion of history. The film's most technically impressive sequence shows a depth charge attack with such visceral intensity that several submarine veterans reportedly walked out of screenings, triggered by the realistic portrayal of their worst fears. Director Mostow later defended the Americanization, saying, "This film was never meant to be a documentary," though he admitted being surprised by the diplomatic incident it created. The U.S. Navy, which initially supported the production, quietly distanced itself after veterans groups protested the historical theft from their British allies. Number 8. Tora, 1970. This massive Japanese-American co-production meticulously recreates the Pearl Harbor attack with documentary precision, filming the American and Japanese perspectives separately with different directors. Martin Balsam and So Yamamura lead enormous casts portraying the fateful decisions leading to December 7, 1941. What distinguishes this film? The Japanese sequences were originally supposed to be directed by legendary filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, until he was fired 3 weeks into production. The troubled production became one of Hollywood's most expensive gambles, with 20th Century Fox spending an unprecedented $25 million. The filmmakers constructed full-size replicas of Japanese aircraft carriers and American battleships. For the attack sequences, they built hundreds of anatomically correct dummies that were rigged to move when hit by machine gun fire or explosions. During one massive pyrotechnic sequence, stuntmen were seriously injured when explosions exceeded safety parameters. Critics initially dismissed the film as tedious, with Roger Ebert calling it one of the deadest, dullest blockbusters ever made. However, military historians praised its accuracy, and it later became standard viewing at war colleges worldwide. The Japanese filmmakers faced backlash at home for portraying the attack as a strategic mistake rather than a glorious victory. Meanwhile, some American veterans groups protested showing the Japanese perspective at all. The film's most impressive technical achievement was recreating the battleship row explosions without CGI, using elaborate pyrotechnics that remain among the largest practical effects ever filmed. One special effects explosion grew so large it was spotted on weather radar, causing brief panic among local residents who feared another actual attack. Despite its initial commercial failure, the film gained respect over decades as audiences came to appreciate its uncompromising historical approach over more melodramatic Pearl Harbor depictions. Number 7. Run Silent, Run Deep, 1958. Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster face off in this claustrophobic submarine thriller that influenced every underwater war film that followed. Gable plays Commander Richardson, obsessed with destroying the Japanese destroyer that sank his previous submarine, while Lancaster is his executive officer who believes the captain's vendetta endangers the entire crew. What makes this film revolutionary? It was the first to realistically portray the psychological pressure cooker of submarine warfare, setting the template that Das Boot would perfect decades later. Director Robert Wise insisted on authenticity, filming in actual submarine interiors, and consulting with submarine commanders from both American and captured Japanese fleets. The production became notorious for its difficult shooting conditions. The actors worked in genuine submarine compartments where temperatures often exceeded 100 degrees. Both Gable and Lancaster suffered claustrophobic episodes during filming, with Lancaster later claiming he developed a permanent fear of enclosed spaces. Critics recognized the film's psychological depth, with The New Yorker calling it the first submarine film more concerned with men's minds than with torpedoes. Naval officers were divided. Some praised its tactical accuracy, while others worried it revealed too many classified submarine maneuvers. The film's most controversial aspect was its unflinching portrayal of command breakdown, with Lancaster leading a near mutiny against Gable's increasingly erratic orders. The production faced unexpected technical challenges when filming underwater explosions, accidentally creating pressure waves that damaged the camera submarine. Director Wise later revealed that many tension-filled reaction shots came naturally, as the actors were genuinely terrified during sequences where the mock submarine interior was violently rocked and flooded with real seawater. Despite being overshadowed by later submarine epics, naval historian Craig Simons calls it the grandfather of all modern submarine films, the first to show that the real enemy is often fear itself. Number 6. The Caine Mutiny, 1954. Humphrey Bogart delivered his last great performance as the paranoid Captain Queeg, slowly losing his grip on reality aboard a naval destroyer minesweeper during crucial Pacific operations. When Executive Officer Merrick, Van Johnson, relieves him of command during a typhoon, it triggers a court-martial that explores the boundaries of military authority. What separates this film from typical naval dramas? It dared to suggest that sometimes American military leadership was psychologically unfit, a controversial stance during the height of the Cold War. Columbia Pictures nearly abandoned the production when the Navy initially refused cooperation, worried the film would damage recruitment. Director Edward Dmytryk, himself recently blacklisted during the McCarthy era, fought for years to get the project made. The Navy eventually relented, providing ships and technical advisors after script revisions. Bogart, himself a Navy veteran, insisted on playing Queeg against his heroic image, meticulously researching combat fatigue by interviewing naval psychiatrists. Critics recognized its brilliance, though some questioned its patriotism. The film earned 7 Academy Award nominations and became one of 1954's highest-grossing releases. The Navy created special briefings for officers who might face questions from enlisted men after viewing the film. The movie's most iconic scene shows Bogart's breakdown on the witness stand, nervously rolling steel balls in his hand while his testimony unravels, a performance so convincing that clinical psychiatrists have used the clip to teach about paranoid personality disorder. Author Herman Wouk, who wrote the Pulitzer-winning novel the film was based on, had mixed feelings about the adaptation. He worried viewers would miss the book's ultimate message that the mutiny, while perhaps necessary, was still wrong. This moral ambiguity made the film required viewing at naval academies, where it sparked decades of ethical debates about when duty requires following versus challenging orders. As one admiral supposedly told graduates, "Watch the Caine Mutiny, then pray you're never in a situation like either Queeg or Merrick." Number 5. Midway, 1976. This star-studded epic recreates the decisive 1942 carrier battle that turned the tide in the Pacific War. Charlton Heston leads a cast, including Henry Fonda, James Coburn, and Toshiro Mifune, in parallel American and Japanese narratives showing how the outnumbered U.S. forces achieved victory through intelligence, courage, and luck. What makes this film stand out? It pioneered the use of actual combat footage, seamlessly integrated with Hollywood reenactments, creating unprecedented realism. Producer Walter Mirisch secured rare cooperation from both the U.S. and Japanese navies, filming aboard operational aircraft carriers with serving military personnel. The production became legendary for its dangerous aerial photography, with several camera planes nearly crashing while attempting to capture the perfect attack angle. The filmmakers' commitment to accuracy extended to casting Fonda as Admiral Nimitz. Despite Fonda being significantly taller than the diminutive Nimitz, they built special platforms for other actors to stand on during their scenes together. Critics were divided, with some praising its historical precision while others found it dramatically inert. Military historians, however, consider it the most tactically accurate naval battle film ever made. Admiral Thomas Moorer, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, stated, "This film finally gets the details right that most naval histories miss." The film's most technically impressive sequences used a revolutionary process, combining newly filmed aerial footage with actual combat photography so seamlessly that even Navy veterans couldn't distinguish between them. The production faced unique challenges filming the Japanese perspective, as few Japanese carriers had survived the war. The solution came from an unexpected source. The U.S. Navy offered their carrier, USS Lexington, to play multiple Japanese ships, temporarily repainting sections and altering details between shots. Despite its somewhat dated sensibilities, naval historian Craig L. Simmons called it the definitive visual document of carrier warfare that influenced military training films for decades. Number 4. The Enemy Below, 1957. Robert Mitchum and Kurt Jurgens engage in the ultimate cat-and-mouse duel as an American destroyer captain and a German U-boat commander, trying to outsmart each other in the South Atlantic. What makes this naval thriller revolutionary? It was the first major Hollywood film to portray German submariners as worthy opponents rather than villainous Nazis, showing the human side of the enemy at the height of the Cold War. Director Dick Powell insisted on technical perfection, consulting with both American and German naval veterans to ensure tactical accuracy. The production built a full-size working replica of a German U-boat interior, complete with functioning instruments. For underwater sequences, they developed new filming techniques using pressurized camera housings and specialized lighting that established the visual language for submarine movies that followed. Critics praised its balanced portrayal, though some American veterans groups protested humanizing the enemy. The film won an Academy Award for special effects and influenced military thinking about anti-submarine warfare. Navy submarine instructors reportedly used the film to teach tactical thinking well into the 1980s. The movie's most groundbreaking aspect was its portrayal of Jürgen's U-boat commander as a reluctant warrior who questions Nazi ideology while maintaining his duty to crew and country. The production faced constant technical challenges filming the climactic underwater sequences. One dramatic explosion damaged camera equipment and injured crew members. Director Powell later revealed that the intense performances came partly from genuine discomfort. Both Mitchum and Jürgens suffered from severe seasickness during rough water sequences. The film's mutual respect between enemies broke new ground, leading directly to Cold War naval thrillers like The Hunt for Red October. Naval historian Stephen Howarth called it the first film to recognize that the Battle of the Atlantic was fought between sailors, not between ideologies. Number 3. Destination Tokyo, 1943. Cary Grant traded his suave image for a submarine captain's hat in this wartime propaganda thriller that follows the USS Copperfin on a dangerous mission into Tokyo Bay. The submarine must secretly gather intelligence crucial for the Doolittle raid while evading Japanese patrols. What makes this film remarkable? It was made while the war was still raging, with the Navy providing classified submarine procedures to the filmmakers with the explicit goal of preparing American audiences for a long Pacific campaign. Warner Brothers received unprecedented access to actual submarine operations, with director Delmer Daves even joining a patrol mission for research. The set created for the film was so accurate that the Navy later used it for training purposes. The production's commitment to realism extended to casting only actors who could fit through a submarine hatch, with several established stars rejected for being too large. Critics praised its technical accuracy, though modern viewers find its propaganda elements heavy-handed. Japanese Americans protested its racial stereotyping, though it was considerably less offensive than many contemporaneous war films. The movie's most tense sequence shows an emergency appendectomy performed in the submarine's cramped quarters using kitchen utensils and medical textbooks, a scene based on an actual incident aboard the USS Sea Dragon. The film had real-world consequences when Japanese intelligence obtained copies and studied it for insights into American submarine tactics. After the war, several captured Japanese officers admitted adjusting their anti-submarine measures based on procedures shown in the film. Despite this security breach, Admiral Chester Nimitz praised its morale impact. This film probably recruited more submariners than all our official channels combined. Modern submarine commanders still reference the film's famous line about their service. The only time you have in a submarine is the time you've got. Number 2. Das Boot, 1981. Wolfgang Petersen's claustrophobic masterpiece redefined submarine warfare on film, following a German U-boat crew as they face mounting dangers in the Battle of the Atlantic. Jürgen Prochnow stars as the disillusioned captain who navigates both enemy destroyers and the failing morale of his increasingly desperate crew. What makes this film extraordinary? The production built a full-size, anatomically correct U-boat interior that could not be disassembled for camera access, forcing cinematographer Jost Vacano to develop a gyroscopically stabilized handheld camera rig that revolutionized action filmmaking. The actors endured nightmarish conditions during the 2-year shoot, living in the cramped, damp submarine set for months while losing weight to achieve the gaunt look of long-patrol submariners. Director Peterson deliberately created uncomfortable conditions, restricting bathroom breaks, keeping the set cold and wet, and running compressed air through pipes to create constant anxiety-inducing background noise. Several actors experienced mental breakdowns during filming. Critics worldwide hailed it as a masterpiece, though some Germans were uncomfortable with its non-judgmental portrayal of Wehrmacht personnel. The film earned 6 Oscar nominations, unprecedented for a German-language film, and grossed over $80 million worldwide. Former U-boat commanders called it disturbingly accurate, with one veteran claiming he experienced panic attacks during screenings. The film's most harrowing sequence shows the submarine exceeding its crush depth, with the hull buckling and pipes bursting, while the crew waits helplessly for either structural failure or a miracle. The production's fanatical attention to detail extended to creating accurate control panels, using original blueprints, and timing on-screen depth charge explosions to match the actual delay between visual shock and sound that submariners experienced. Peterson later revealed that several scenes of equipment failure were unplanned. The submarine set actually malfunctioned during filming, and he kept the cameras rolling as the actors responded with genuine panic. Naval historian Jordan Vows called it the most important submarine film ever made. It forever destroyed the glamorized Hollywood version of underwater warfare. Number 1. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, 2003. Peter Weir's nautical masterpiece transports viewers to the wooden world of Napoleonic naval warfare with unprecedented authenticity. Russell Crowe stars as Captain Jack Aubrey of HMS Surprise, pursuing a larger, faster French privateer through treacherous waters, while balancing tactical necessity with his friendship with ship's surgeon Stephen Maturin. What elevates this film above all other naval dramas? Director Weir's obsessive historical accuracy extended to building a full-scale working replica of a British frigate and training the actors in period seamanship for months before filming began. The production's commitment to realism bordered on insanity. The ship's cannons fired actual gunpowder charges. Actors learned to climb rigging without safety equipment in storm conditions. Crowe mastered period navigation instruments and naval tactics under the guidance of maritime historians. The crew even developed special cameras to capture the ship's movement through massive wave tanks without modern stabilization that would ruin the period feel. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, with Roger Ebert calling it one of the best historical adventure films ever made. Naval historians praised its tactical accuracy and authentic portrayal of early 19th century maritime life. The film earned 10 Academy Award nominations, though it was overshadowed at the box office by Pirates of the Caribbean, released the same year. The movie's most breathtaking sequence shows the ship navigating around Cape Horn during a violent storm. Filmed using a combination of the actual replica ship in rough seas and a massive wave tank, where 1,300 tons of water crashed over the deck with the actors chained to the set for safety. Author Patrick O'Brian, whose novels inspired the film, died before seeing his work realized. But his technical advisor Richard O'Neill proclaimed, "This is exactly the world Patrick wrote about." Despite plans for a sequel, disappointing box office returns scuttled the potential franchise. Director Weir later revealed the extreme measures taken for realism. "We had naval historians review every frame for accuracy. If a single rope was out of place, we reshot." Naval scholar Andrew Lambert considers it the most historically accurate depiction of the Age of Sail ever committed to film. You can smell the salt and gunpowder. From claustrophobic submarines to towering battleships, these naval epics captured the terror, bravery, and sheer spectacle of war at sea, better than any history book ever could. But did we miss your favorite? Was Master and Commander truly deserving of the top spot? Or should Das Boot have claimed victory? And the ultimate question, are modern CGI naval battles an insult to the practical effects masterpieces of the past? Or do they finally allow us to recreate massive fleet engagements that were previously impossible to film? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let the battle begin.